The first day of school is supposed to be exciting. But for Chinedu Okafor, a 15-year-old boy who had just moved with his family from Nigeria to the United States, that first day felt like stepping into a courtroom where I was a jury. The school was in Atlanta, Georgia, a city known for its Southern pride and civil rights history, but inside those hallways, it was just another high school. Loud lockers slamming, students rushing, laughter echoing in cliques that had been formed years before he ever arrived. And when he opened his mouth for the first time to introduce himself, the trial began. "Hi, my name is Chinedu." The laughter came instantly. Some tilted their heads, pretending they didn't understand. Others repeated his words back to him, mocking the rhythm of his Nigerian accent. "Chi what? Say it again. Man, you sound funny. You talk weird." It wasn't curiosity. It was cruelty. At lunch, he sat alone. In class, whispers followed him. The way he said words became his brand, and that brand was the outsider. But Chinedu had something they didn't know yet. He had carried it across an ocean, buried deep inside him. And soon, the world inside that Atlanta school would see it. The first test of the semester was algebra. For most students, the paper was full of confusion, numbers and letters tangled together. But for Chinedu, math wasn't a problem. Back home in Lagos, he'd already studied equations well beyond this level. Math was his safe place, his universal language. His pencil moved quickly, answers flowed. And while others turned in half-empty sheets, he filled every blank. A week later, when the results came back, the classroom fell into a strange silence. The teacher, Mrs. Williams, scanned the room, almost in disbelief, before she spoke. "The highest score, by far, belongs to Chinedu." The whispers came back, but different this time. "No way. He cheated. Impossible. Because how could the boy with the funny accent, the one they called slow, the one they mocked, be the smartest one in the room?" But it didn't stop there. Test after test, subject after subject, Chinedu soared. In science, he explained theories others barely understood. In English, his essays carried a richness and imagery that made even the teacher pause. And every time the grades were posted, the same scene played out, his name at the top. Their jealousy just below it. They mocked him louder now, not just his accent but his intelligence. They called him professor, not out of respect, but as a weapon. They laughed when he raised his hand, mocking the way he phrased his answers. They excluded him from groups, avoided sitting next to him, erased him from their social world. But here's the truth they didn't understand. Chinedu didn't need their approval. He had his own battlefield. At home, his mother noticed his quietness. "How was school today?" she would ask in their small apartment on the west side of Atlanta. "It was fine," he'd answer, forcing a smile. But behind his bedroom door, the truth came out in the pages of his notebooks. He wrote equations and poetry side by side. He wrote about the names, the isolation, the sting of laughter. And then, right next to it, he wrote about his dreams to become an engineer, to build something bigger than the ignorance around him. He promised himself something in that small room. "They can laugh at my accent, but they will never laugh at my success." By junior year, whispers turned into conversations. Teachers noticed his consistency. Counselors noticed his potential. The Atlanta Journal even published a feature about him as an immigrant success story. When the statewide math competition came around, Chinedu's school nominated him. The same students who once mocked him now sat in the bleachers as he walked on stage, their laughter replaced by silence. The problems flashed on the big screen, problems that looked impossible. Chinedu leaned over his paper, calm, steady, confident. Minutes later, he held the answer. When they announced him as the winner, the gym erupted in applause. But not every clap was genuine. Some still rolled their eyes. Some clapped reluctantly. Others didn't clap at all. Because deep down, envy still sat where respect should have been. By senior year, acceptance letters began to arrive, big ones, prestigious ones. Georgia Tech, Emory, Met, Schools across the country wanted the boy they once called the outsider. The final announcement came in the cafeteria. Chinedu had earned a full scholarship to Mint. This time, the silence was deafening. Some whispered, "He's gonna make it big." Others just stared, realizing too late what they had dismissed all along. On graduation day, under the bright Georgia sun, Chinedu walked across the stage. His tassel swayed as his name was called. And in that moment, he didn't hear the laughter anymore. He didn't hear the whispers. He heard the voices of his parents cheering in the crowd. He felt the weight of his sacrifice, his isolation, his determination, and he knew he had won. Not just the diploma, not just the scholarship, but the battle to prove that brilliance is not bound by accent, skin, or origin. They mocked his black accent, but his brilliance could not be mocked. And here's the truth: Atlanta is not the only city with a Chinedu. Every year, students walk into classrooms carrying stories, cultures, and voices we don't understand. And too often, instead of listening, we laugh. Instead of celebrating, we shame. Instead of embracing brilliance, we bury it under stereotypes. So the question is, how many voices have we silenced before they even had the chance to rise? How many students have been robbed of the confidence to show their light because all we saw was the way they spoke? Chinedu's story is not just about him. It's about every student who sits quietly at the back, mocked for their difference when they might be the genius who changes the world. So the next time you hear someone speak and their words sound different from yours, will you laugh? Or will you listen because the accent they carry might just be the sound of brilliance? If you believe stories like this must be told, subscribe and share. Together, we can make sure no voice is mocked into silence. Because in the end, they mocked his accent, but his success could never be mocked.